Okay, my name's Tom Dubik, and I appreciate you coming by to listen on this webinar. We're going to go ahead and talk about best practices with 3D printing. I'm a school teacher in Charlotte, North Carolina, at a prep school, and we do quite a bit with engineering. And as you can see here, we do a lot with 3D printing. We started our engineering program back in 1989, and it's a lot of what everybody would call STEM education. And it's evolved over the years to now. In fact, you can see this is back when I had black hair. You can see we have my students had the world's largest paper airplane at one time. These people are all engineers and doctors now. But today we've evolved over time. We're now also a fab lab. So if anybody's involved with the Fab Lab or Fab Academy or MIT's how to make almost anything, we've just recently joined that program as well. So what I want to talk to you about 3D printing is the procedure so you can implement it in your classroom. And I want to make this really important point, and it's a point we operate at our school with our engineering program. It's not about teaching kids about equipment. And it's certainly not about teaching kids 3D printing. So one recurring theme in this is that if you have one or two 3D printers, which everybody starts with, in many cases, you are teaching the kids about 3D printers, but you're not teaching the kids. It's hard to teach the kids a lot about design thinking or STEM or the engineering method. Okay? Because really the equipment they use will be different by the time they're adults. The 3D printers they're using, they will evolve and change. So it's really always, we believe, and this is my opinion of my school and myself, that it's the important part is teaching the process. All right? So you want the student making their own things. So in this case, he's made a Metallica because it was important to him. He went through the process of learning how to work the printer. But for everybody in a class of 15 kids or 20 kids to be able to print out something requires a lot of printers. That's why to get kids to do design thinking, the engineering method, you need more students to access more 3D printers. Students, in our opinion, need to own and maintain the printers and use the cloud effectively. When I say own, the school owns the 3D printers. They take ownership, pride of the 3D printers, etc. Okay? So, I've got a question here before we go any further. What is the name? My name again is Tom Dubik. Sorry. All right. My name's Tom Dubik, and again, I teach Charlotte Latin. I'm teach engineering and head of our engineering department. Okay? Now, let's go on how, if you have multiple printers, how you're going to implement this. And even if you have one or two, then it's things that suggest it'll work in your classroom. That will help. First of all, in case you're wondering, and I'm curious, if anybody's doing it a different way and they want to add to this, I'm very interested in what you have to say. We use basically the Autodesk products. They're free, they're well designed, and they run on any platform. So our students, we have Tinkercad. We start off with our younger kids, Tinkercad. Everybody will use Tinkercad, but for example, our upperclassmen will use it just for a day or so, and then they'll move on to something else. Our 7th and 8th graders use something called a 123D design, again from Autodesk and free. And then the high schoolers, we plan to use Autodesk Fusion. That's a relatively new product, but it's a pretty exciting product, and it's very powerful. And they're all, if you sign up for Auto Tinkercad, you can get on all of these. So for schools, it's a pretty good deal. Now, I will tell you this. We're finding with 123D design that if you have all the kids really taxing you can tax your wireless or your network with them all running at once. So one thing we're trying to do and experimenting with is flipping it a little bit where we have the kids We show some things at school, but we're also encouraging them to work at home when possible. Okay? Let me, again, 123D design, we're finding that recently. That may be a problem on our end. I don't want to say it. That applies to everybody in any of these situations, but it's what we're finding. Again, we may just be able to increase a little bit of bandwidth and solve that problem. To do, in my opinion, to do design thinking and to do these things, you need more multiple printers. But the problem you get with multiple printers, it's, you know, it's embarrassment of riches. If you have 6 printers, you get a collection of printers, for example. How do you maintain them and take care of them? Because I don't think any teachers here right now want to spend their day taking care of the printers. So what we do is we have a lesson that we teach the kids how to maintain and take care of the printers, how to set up the prints, etc. And then that before they really start using the printers. And they're expected to fix, for example, printer jams. They're expected to know how to print it and set it up and do it. And I think that's really an important part of that, because you just get overwhelmed if you're just going to try to take care of all the printers yourself or wait for your tech department to fix them. And the kids want, and you're going to find a few kids are very interested and want to do it anyways. So here's the lesson. We might start off, kick off, you know, how's 3D print in your society, but then here's the lesson we really go to. Print preparation and repair. All right. How to prepare a print and how to repair a Polar3D printer. So what I mean by repair a 3D printer, it's more for a printer jam. This is not something super sophisticated, but for troubleshooting that. All right, we've got another question. Let me go ahead and take that. What is the age range? Great question, Hank. The age range, we start with middle school to high school. We have our high school students repairing the 3D printers. We expect our middle school students to know how to use the printers so they don't have to be supervised to set up a print. As far as taking the print head apart, right now that's 9th grade, though we are considering having our 8th graders do it as well. Okay? So I'm going to actually walk you through some screens right now that our students actually see. And let me just say this. Besides teaching at Charlotte Latin, I do enrichment programs with students that don't attend Charlotte Latin, and partner with some teachers across the U.S., as well as I'm in some locations in North Carolina. And this is a long-winded way of me saying is, these curricular materials you're seeing tonight, I'm happy to share with you. I'm happy to share with you any of the materials we have. We do a lot with Raspberry. We were the first school to use Raspberry Pi. We do a lot with Arduinos. There's an amazing mechatronics Science Olympiad event that helped prepare. We have a bunch of lesson plans and curriculum materials for Arduino. So when this is over, if you want to see me or get into that other information, I am very happy to share. So what I'm showing you right now is a lesson that we work with our kids. Happy to share with you. Okay? And maybe at the end here, you can join the Educators Club on the Polar3D Cloud, and I'll just get it to you that way. All right. Is the 3D Polar printer ready? So when you walk in, all right. Now, what we do is get the kids to start to read the lights on the printers. No lights, all blue lights, blue light, yellow lights, and blue and white lights. We want the kids to understand what those lights mean so you can at least they can begin to troubleshoot what's going on. So we'll explain to the kids, no lights means you don't have any power. Check your power cord. If you see all blue lights, it's probably not connected to either the network or the internet. Yellow light, it's connected to your local area network. And then finally, blue-white, you're probably good to go. So we go through and make sure they really do this. I actually have quizzes for it. We give the kids a quiz. They're expected to get mastery on the quiz. The first quiz counts for kind of a grade, but then if they want to come in and use the 3D printers, and that's what we really want, to get the kids to come in and use this equipment whenever they have another project. We're very excited when they're making something for their history class. We had a student the other day just make a heart to ask a girl out for fall dance. That was kind of funny. All right, and this here, make sure the light's plugged in. Blue lights only, you're not connected on your local area network. That would be all blue here. That doesn't show very well. Blue and yellow, you're connected to your local network, but not the internet. And that's what we're showing there. And blue and white, and that's supposed to be white down there. It's a little tough to see. You're good to go. All right. Now, it involves 3 steps. And I'm giving you the 3 steps, but I'm putting 2 steps here that you may just need to do now. This technology keeps getting better and better, but I've got the first 2 listed that you're certainly going to do, and that is you spray the mirror with hairspray, and then you preheat the print to 185 degrees is some of the stuff we begin to do. All right? Now, let's talk about this. When they spray the mirror with the hairspray, you get the kids to understand you're going to spray it with hairspray, but you're not going to put it down wet. It needs to be sticky, not wet and sticky. It needs to be sticky. Also, too, the mirrors don't have to be perfectly clean when you do it. So you can have a print on there and just touch it up with a little bit of spray. Now, what we really, and we always say, you got to use Aquanet. You can't use anything else that might. Aquanet's completely water-based, cleans up, not a problem. If you get something maybe a little more expensive, they might put other materials in the hairspray that may or may not work with our 3D printers. The other thing is we stress massively to use 2 hands. I continuously fuss at them to use 2 hands. Got another question here. Let's go see what that is. Do you have an alternate besides hairspray? We can't use hairspray in the school? Really? I've seen some people use glue sticks, but I think we need to ask if we've got someone from, I think somebody from Polar said they might be stopping by and they can do some checking, but we can post that to ask. There's nothing in the hairspray, but there may be. Does BuildTech work on a Polar3D? Not used it. All right, someone just answered. Thank you. Yeah, we use glue sticks with our Ultimaker. So some people do it with their Ultimakers. I had 2 replicators 2s and up plus 2s, and we used blue tape, blue sticky tape, and then sometimes we use glue sticks and sometimes we used hairspray. All right, great. And someone, Steve, I think is going to check. They're going to check. We'll post that tomorrow. If you're on the Polar Cloud, search later on the Polar Cloud educators. And if you'll join my club there, I can post that on up there. It'd be great. All right. The 2 hands, because if you don't, and I stress the kids, if you don't use 2 hands, you end up doing that to it. And that's hanging in our school hall of shame, and I did it. I'm the one that knocked that mirror over. So I just tease the kids. All right. Okay. Elmer's Extreme is recommended for glue sticks when printing with ABS plastics, for example. Now, I will say, I'm glad you brought up ABS or PLA. We use PLA. We have ABS. We have one computer printer we use ABS. We originally did almost all ABS. Now we've gone to all PLA. The fumes, if you get several printers printing in your room, the fumes can be strong, frankly. Okay? So we've gone to PLA. All right? Now, one thing, the mirrors are not interchangeable. So we teach the kids, you've got to look on the mirror. We tape it. We put tape underneath the mirror. We put a tape in front of the 3D printer so you can see it from the outside. Also, Polar3D puts a serial number on there under the mirror, and they put a serial number behind the 3D printer. Okay? What temp, new question, what temp to use PLA at? They recommend 185. We've been doing 180, but they recommend now 185. If it starts to peel up, you're probably too hot. If you do a print that's peeling up too much, it's probably too hot. Okay. All right. I hope you found that useful. And sometimes you have to play with it a little bit. Okay. As far as, all right, so they put the mirror on there. They put the hot glue on there. Oftentimes you can simply snap the print right off the glass just using your fingers. If you're using a hairspray and you get your print, I would say you can do a couple things. You can stick it in a refrigerator for 10 minutes and try it again. If that doesn't work, flowing hot water for a few minutes and then remove the print. I found that if you put it under hot water and let it set a little bit, it might just slide right off. Remember, that hairspray is water soluble. Okay? I think we have another question, another statement. If you break a mirror, can you put, yes, I did. They got it, but keep the mirror because you take a caliper to it so they know it. If you know the serial number for the mirror, you're all set because they'll have it on their records. And then, but save pieces of the mirror in case they don't so they can measure the thickness. I think down the road what they'll do is their suppliers will provide a constant mirror and then you don't have to worry. Okay? Let me see someone else adding. Thank you. Freezer always works for me, but how do we pull print off in a classroom? In my classroom, there is a sink, and I'll have the kids go to the restroom right across the sink, and they pour the water on. 2 kids go and they pour the water on it. Again, the kids are pretty fired up to be in this class, so they want the mirror back, and they understand if someone has a mirror, wow, you're just going to be out of luck on your print. So they're very excited about that. And that's why I think hot water and you let it set, it'll be fine. I, as the teacher, will use a razor. I would not recommend that to you, though, because it's just a matter of time before I cut myself with that, taking it off. I'm working on a couple designs where I can set my polar mirror in at a slight tilt and use a razor to take something off, and the mirror and the razor will safely can't touch anybody. Okay? I think Gary's got a question here. Let me go ahead and raise that. Yeah, Gary. Gary?
Doesn't it take a long time if students are using hot water to wash off their print and then respray it again? Like, does it take a long time to build that hairspray back up so it sticks?
Nope. I don't. You want it. What you want to do is, let me restate this. If you resort that, you have to use hot water. And remember, a lot of it's things with a big wide base are the ones that are hard to get off. But if you put hot water on there, and then it comes off, and then dry the mirror off, and then put your hairspray back on it, it's much faster. If you leave the mirror wet and pour hairspray on it, yeah, it's going to take longer. All right? I hope that answered Gary. Okay. Also, too, I've been known to go to the teacher's lounge in the summertime. We sometimes avoid a razor. We sometimes use a plastic credit card or a broken old credit card. We'll wedge it under the glass to help to get the water under it. One thing I would say, on some of the other 3, we on a Replicator 2 we had, and some of the other ones, I'm also thinking of maybe the Up Plus 2s we had. They use sometimes like a metal paint scraper or putty knife. Don't use that on this stuff. Okay, I would strongly recommend against that. Okay. Now, inevitably, all 3D printers will jam with PLA. It's the nature of the beast. If you've got that PLA and someone pulls on it when it's cold, or pushes on it when it's cold, it's liable to be jammed. And this next feature is why when I saw the Polar 3D, I saw it at a conference and bought one on the spot, is because it's how easy it is to unjam it and the fact you don't have to level it very often. If you notice, we didn't even talk about leveling a printer, where in other printers, you really have to spend a lot of time getting them leveled. All right. First thing you need to do, what I do to get the kids, if they unjam it, is we try heating it up to 185. And then we pull the stuck PLA out. Just heat it up to 185. And a lot of times you can just pull it out at that point. And then you can push the other PLA back in. Pushing the PLA back in, we'll show you why, but there's a slight resistance for the PLA to go in. And sometimes students think, oh, it's jammed, I can't push it through, when they're just not using enough oomph. So the key is going to pull or push PLA, make sure it's 100, making sure it's 185 Celsius. You'll know that it's hot heating if that fan's on. All right. Now, the second part of this is if you can't pull it out, you take it apart. Luckily, and we tell the students, luckily for you, that's not very hard to do. And this, I've been very happy at how well my students can take them apart now. All right. What we do is if you go to take it apart, you've got the fan on. If you've been trying to push or pull, if you've been doing it right, and you tried to pull it out, you had the heat on it, maybe it came out, maybe it didn't, but you think it's jammed, you make sure you turn it off. So you want to make sure that fan is not running. Right now it's running. Then unplug it. Now the fan's off. There it is. Or from the cloud, say stop, print, whatever, whichever way you want to do it. And there it is. The fan's off. Then underneath it, well, make sure, by the way, when you unplug it, remove the mirror. Don't leave the mirror on there. You'd be surprised. You're not thinking you'll grab it with the mirror. Underneath it are the 2 hex wrenches for it. Now, what I did is we have the hex wrenches are underneath it. I made a box because we have 13 Polar3D printers. And I made sure and just have a little box that we have the hex wrenches in, so people pick them in and out. I have pliers and I have tweezers. You can get tweezers very inexpensively for them pulling it out. Because remember, just this red part here is hot. Right down there, that's hot. That's most likely 185 degrees Celsius. So you don't want to touch that. And you want to encourage the kids to unplug it and turn it off, because the tendency is you only have to remove these 2 parts, and there's tendency to try to do that while that fan is spinning. I would not recommend that, because it's so easy to, by accident, put that hex wrench in, fins of this fan hit the hex wrench, and it's going to break right off. Okay? All right. There's 2 hex wrenches there. The largest of the 2 you insert in here and here to loosen them up. Okay? And this is, let's define some parts. This is the extruder motor. This is the extruder block. This block right here. That's what your PLA goes through. So you're going to loosen these 2 off. You do not need to take the bottom 2 off. And you get students that want to do that. So that's why I have a quiz. I have a quiz on how to prepare for the 3D prints, and then I have another quiz for how to repair if they get a jam. So if you've got one there, if you've got kids that you want them to just use the 3D printer, then you have another one for the kids who are a little more advanced and you want to let them go ahead and repair it when it's stuck. All right. Now, here is the block. She's putting the screws through. That hex wrench goes all the way through, and the screws are that you're unloosening right there and right over on this side on her other finger, these 2 top ones. We're not doing the bottom one. Okay? Key is the 1 screws, they're not supposed to come out, but they will. Now let me show you something else too. This part right here where thumb and finger is, you don't touch that. You don't need to touch that. It comes from the factory set to the right tension. So that's not going to help anything by doing that. It's this part you're trying to take off. Okay? Carefully remove the extruder block above the extruder motor as to keep the screws in it so they don't fall out. That's why you put in block. Here is the extruder block. You see this wheel? The PLA comes down and it goes through a groove in this wheel. And there's a spring here. This spring forces the wheel inside, which pushes against that brass-looking gear right here. That's why when they shove the PLA through here, they got to push that wheel back a little bit with that spring. So that's why it might feel like it's stuck when it's not. And there it is. You can see the jam. It might look something like this. It's stuck right in there. Plus, you'll see a lot of PLA may build up over this over time. You just blow it and clean it out. Turn the printer back on, set the heat to 185. That's the better operating temperature. We started when we were first doing this, we were doing 180. We've now made it 185. All right, once that temperature gets to 185, then you pull out the PLA. Notice this fan will be running, so just have a pair of pliers and pull it out right at that end. If you can't get it all out, or you think it's jammed in there, take the smaller hex wrench and shove it in this way to get the PLA out. Now remember, you're putting that hex wrench in 185 degrees Celsius. It's metal. So be very careful when you pull that when you push that hex wrench in there. You're going to see the PLA come out of the other end. Make sure you don't touch the tip of that hot hex wrench at that point. The tip of the hex wrench will be very hot. So when you push it through, pull it out. You'll be amazed how it's a good conductor, so it gets hot really fast. The good news is because it's a good conductor, it's going to lose the heat very fast too. All right. Then unplug the power. This is where the kids, and this is where you probably will do, everybody wants to do is like, oh man, all I got to do is put the header block on here, the extruder block, excuse me, and run the PLA in and I'm ready to go. Well, you can rush it, but remember, we got to put those two screws in the corner of this fan to go into here. It's very easy to sloppily get it, put it, one of those screws into this fan here and hit the blades and break the blades, and suddenly you're calling about ordering a new fan for this PLA for the printer. So we've just gotten into the habit, you unplug it, turn it off, take a minute or two, won't mess anything up. All right, you reattach the extruder block by tightening the two top screws of the fan and extruder motor. Okay, I don't know. Into the motor by, hang on, let me go back that up just one second. I'm going to go ahead and fix, we got a little bit of a typo in there, but what you're doing is you're putting this two screws back in there. I've got to remember, make a note to myself to edit that slide. Okay, then plug the machine back in, set the temp back to 185. Once the 85 is reached, go ahead, push it out. It should ooze out just like this. That way you see it. Congrats, your printer's unjammed. Much happiness abounds in your lab. Any questions about that? Any questions about who does it? Any questions how we teach the kids how to do it? Usually I'll even take one printer block and have the kids practice putting an extruder in there. Also, if there's any students doing this or anybody doing it, you don't have to make those screws in there super tight. Don't make them super tight. You're going to need to loosen them up anyways down the road, and that's aluminum, so you can strip that out. Is it also possible, let me go ahead and look at this question. Is it also possible to clean the extruder with a 38 guitar wire when heated to 185 in some cases? If that's that thin, I suppose it is. I've not tried it. Will this webinar be archived? Yes. Just go ahead and make sure you, and I'll make sure you get the PDFs for all this too if you want to share it, or I use Google Slides. You can use Google Slides if you want to use it with your students. Just go ahead and join that. Like I say, the easiest way is just go ahead on the Educators Club, and my Educators Club, and I'll put it up there. Very interesting idea with guitar wire. I want to see it. You've got me intrigued with guitar wire. I can't vouch for it because I haven't done that. Gary may have been very successful, so that's something to definitely investigate. I'm going to try it. All right. Let me also show you. I have the questions and quizzes, which I'll show you in a few minutes here. But I also want to say, if you've got it now, so you've got enough printers, you have the kids fixing the printers, you are going to have to decide how you want to load them up in the cloud, and we can certainly look at that. I'd like to do a webinar just about the cloud and how that's all set up. But some people are asking about curricular materials, and I want to tell you about two things that I'm using with curricular materials. Oh, well, wait a minute. Gary just said, hey, Bill, the guy who designed this printer, said to try it and said it worked. So if Bill told you to try it, I'm going to go get some guitar wire and see if that'll work. Because that would certainly be anything that would save time taking things apart. Let's use it. All right. Now, I also wanted to show you this. It's called Project Ignite. And this has curricular materials for you. It's used, and I wanted to mention this with the Tinkercad and stuff out there. They have lesson plans to do things like you design a ring. So that's another feature. Go ahead and search that on Tinkercad. Do Project Ignite Autodesk. Take you right there. You can find it, Google it. I would also throw out to you, if you're interested, that we're doing a study right here in the state of North Carolina. I'm involved with. I helped design it, where schools have 2 3D printers, and then we're investigating that could bigger school systems. A lot of teachers just need 2 3D printers, maybe in their library or right in their classroom, for a little while, but they would like to access more. So we're looking at, could we make a 3D printer farm, and is that really a practical thing to do? Could big school systems? Could you have printer farm in maybe a library or somewhere, and then at the school, at each individual school, they have a couple 3D printers, and then when your class, everybody wants to print or do something, they can. And so we are developing lesson plans for that. Right now, a student developing air racing cars. We are doing a program where the kids design a signet ring. So that covers kind of boys and girls making jewelry. If there's any kind of issue there, well, they make a signet ring. What we like about it in all these is that kind of ties in history, English, as well as your 3D printing and the math. And so I'm, again, happy to share that with anybody. If they'd be interested in participating in a study like that too, let me know. Okay? So that's design thinking and 3D printing. Design thinking and 3D printing. And we're in the right now is testing that. How well will that concept really work? Now, what I'd like to show you, let me hit escape here. I'll show you kind of what we give the kids in terms of, let me go here. No, let's see here. This is the steps we go through at our school. Now, check to make sure. So this is a prepare to print. The kids work their way through it. This is, if the other one was how to repair that printer, this is the steps to go through to printing the printer. Can you see this? Can you guys see my document here? If you raise your hand, can you see it? All right, maybe I need to make this a little bit bigger than it looks to me. We'll go to a little bit larger font. Let me see if I do this. Bear with me 1 second. There we go. All right, I hope is that better? Hope you see it now. All right, let me see. We've got another question here. Go to Zoom Fit. Mini, go to Zoom Fit. I will go to Zoom Fit if I can do it on Chrome. Let me go View, Zoom in, enter full screen. There we go. I kind of don't want to go full screen right now. All right, I think that's big enough now. Everybody should be able to see it. Go to Zoom Fit in Google Docs. It's tiny arrow next to, good, I'll learn something here. Catherine, tell me, next to 100%. Let me see Zoom Fit, next to 100%. All right, here. Thank you. There's Fit. All right, thank you very much. Okay, Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's a good way. That's why I love doing webinars. I always learn as much as my audience does. All right, or I hope my audience learns something. All right, so check to make sure you have enough PLA. We have the kids look behind it. You don't want to go through there. A quick way to do that is you can weigh the PLA, and they can do an actual ratio of, hey, the object they want to print, how much does that weigh, and then how much PLA do you have in terms of grams. Great ratio study. All right, make sure we check on the lights, and that's where we have it here. If there's no light, hey, is the printer plugged in? Is the power strip? Another tip, plug all your power strips into all your printers to one power strip so you can turn it off. That way you press one button, everything goes off. It sounds silly, but when you're trying to leave at night, that's a nice thing to do. Or you're coming in the morning and kids are lined up at the door that want to start using your printers. Blue and yellow lights are connected to the network, but not to the internet. You need to check your wireless or Ethernet connections. Honestly, if at all possible, run your Polar3D on an Ethernet connection, unless your wireless is just incredible at your school. Okay? If it's blue lights only, you're not connected to the local area network or the internet. That's when I get blue lights only, that probably starts to get to the point where the students can tell me, hey, Mr. Dubick, we don't have either one. I might be getting involved at that time. Also, don't be surprised if your prints are going on and you look over and all of a sudden all your printers are yellow light and then they come back to white light. So say they're running, they're all yellow, and suddenly they become white light. That's just, you'll see that you'll have internet interruptions across the course of the day. Okay? Okay, Steve lost the audio. Okay. Lately, we've been getting blue and yellow lights that stay the entire day. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Tells me you're not reaching the internet. I think they had issues with the polar cloud last week in terms of that. If you have the newest updated drivers and things, you can print directly. Like I have 2 printers set up, connected directly to a computer. So that's one thing you can kind of do with that. Though usually I've never had it all day have it. Seems it gets worse. On the bad days last week that we had it, got worse as the day progressed. All right. The next thing I get the kids to do is spray the mirror with hairspray and wait to dry. Sticky but not wet. Good to go. Wait until. All right. Now this is something I do that I want to show you that you may not need to do anymore. So let's be clear on this. You may get along fine without having to do this. Polar3D, the Polar people really don't think you need to do it anymore. But sometimes I have students that get too excited. We have 5th graders coming to see the 3D printers. I have seniors that are in a rush, half asleep and not thinking, and they'll pull on the PLA when it's cold, or they'll push on it. Well, now they've just jammed the printer. What we like to do is, they're jamming the printer. So what do you want to do? We don't like discovering the printer's jammed as you're starting to print. This is becoming less of an issue because the pause and the stop print seem to be working pretty well. In the past, you'd stop a print and it was hard to restart. But here's what we do. We teach our students now. This may very much change in the future. We warm up our printers to 180. We log into the Polar Cloud. They select the club they're supposed to be in, select the printer. If they've not done it before, they collect that printer. Go to the printer, set the temperature to 185 or so, and check the printer fan. If it's spinning, the printer is heating up. If it's not spinning, the printer is not heating up. Recheck steps 1 and 2. You got a problem. Your printer's not going on. However, once it reaches 185, this has all been changed over to 185 now. Once it hits 185, push the PLA through the nozzle. If the PLA does not come out of the nozzle, pull out the PLA, cut the PLA 3 inches from the end of the, cut the PLA 3 inches from the end of the PLA, and retry pushing in the PLA. PLA comes out of the nozzle, go to step 4. If it doesn't, it's jammed. go see the instructions for unjamming the printer. If the hairspray is tricky and you can push the PLA through the nozzle, you're ready to print. Then you go to print, and we tell them step by step how to load it up into the cloud to print it. Again, not as important as it used to be to do that. Okay? But I just never liked it when it was jammed and they're already starting to go. All right? Good. I like you like that tip. All right. Now, let's translate a print. So we go through the steps, we go through the down list, we talk to them about collecting the printer, we have them walk it all the way through. And then we just say, printing an object in collection, make sure it's sticky, go ahead and print it. So we've walked you through all the steps, printing an object not in the collection, and then printing an object in the collection. Notice we go right through and say, when you get presented with that message, do you wish to view and manipulate? When we get started with kids, we leave it as no. Just have them put it on the printer, start to print. There's enough to learn then. Then, once they've been doing it a while, we'll start getting into them modifying and changing it. But the first few prints, this is what we use. I think there's a real tendency, it can be too much to overwhelm the kids with too much right off the bat. Overwhelm adults, never mind kids. Yes, I will share these directions with you. I will share these quizzes with you. I'll also make sure that Polar3D folks take a look at this stuff so we know the content's accurate and I'm not giving you misinformation. All right? They are working on, if I remember correctly, they are working on a good procedure too. So they may be coming out. But I'll have these there. Like I say, the easiest thing to do, well, we could do this two ways. Join the go on support, go to educators, search the clubs, select educators. That's probably the easiest thing. The next thing I do is I could email. I've got everybody's email here if you would want me to email you this stuff. But join the educators. With that, we keep it up. Plus, I can get more folks that can contribute, and we can do a better job with this. All right, Karen's got a question. Let me ask her. Yes, Karen. You have a question? Okay, her hand's up, but maybe mic's not working or whatever. Okay. All right. Okay, Maria, if you'll email me at, I can't write, I'm writing this down and doing this, I probably will mess it up. So if you want, you can email me at T. Dubek. I'll tell you what, just use my Gmail account. Tom Dubik, Tom, D as in dog, U, B as in boy, ICK at gmail.com. That's Tom Dubik, Tom, Dub, ICK at gmail.com. Okay. Does Cube Stick work on a mirror? Not sure of that. Not used it. Don't know. Okay. I haven't used that. So I wouldn't use Cube Stick on a mirror necessarily. What we did with in case there's a question of what kinds of things we're teaching, well, our students are using Arduinos or Raspberry Pis, depending on which class it is. So we had them design a case for the Raspberry Pi. And then and that's what they were sitting doing. That and the Arduinos. They would sit and measure those out and design. We looked at different case designs. The Fusion has a lesson plan where you design a phone case. So it kind of all ties in well there. And then later, and those, in our opinion, the thing to do is have them assign them to make something. They all want to make, it seems like, keychains and phone cases to begin with. But what we say is you just can't print something off at Thingiverse, for example. We want you to modify it. And then as far as assigning things, we go ahead and assign them. They print that. But down the road, we want them to design something that they're interested in. They're going to get a lot more out of it. They make something they're invested in. All right, so we've got that. Let me see what else here on this. All right. And so here's what a quiz might look like. it's not meant to be super challenging. Just make sure, hey, go through this. And so it's really easy for you to grade. If I get really super motivated, I'm going to go ahead and do a Google Docs survey so we can get to it. Okay? Let's go back over here. Okay. We've actually run even a little bit late already. Is anybody else got any questions at this point? Okay, just real quick, if you take a poll for me, this will give me feedback and how we're doing. All right. Would you be interested in a poll, another webinar? If you'll answer these before you go, guys, I'd really appreciate it. Helps me instead of me guessing what we need to do. All right. We have people are voting right now. We got 50% voted. Let's get past 80, and then we can stop the poll, and I'll gladly share it for you. We got 80% voted. I'm going to close it and poll. 3, 2, 1. Let me share the results. Always share, make it happen. I do a lot of hybrid. The enrichment programs we do are hybrid, where the kids meet online twice a week, and then we meet in a lab. So we're very much in that. All right, 3D printing curriculum. Okay, that should be the next priority, it looks to me. Another design thinking. Happy to do that. There's a lot of really exciting things going on there. Printer repairs. Okay. And then tips for the classroom. Kind of covered that one. Okay. Now, real quick, one more. You'd be so kind. There we go. Let me know what you thought, how I did tonight. I got one fantastic, means my wife must be watching or something. One of the kids. Thank you very much. Okay. We got 75%. Can we get another vote in? Like to have at least 80% on these things so we can end them up. All right. We're going to go ahead, 81%, close it up. And we've got 4654. Thank you very much, folks. Go ahead and hide that. All right. Like I say, we'll fire some of this up. If you join that Educators Club, we'll put it on there. And I don't know if you've used them very much. I'm using those. I can show you too. We'll come back sometime down the road, use on the Polar Cloud software on how we're setting up. And I'd be curious how everybody else is setting up their classes on there, what we're working on. I know the negative that we have with Tinkercad is the kids don't name their project. Tinkercad automatically gives the names these silly file names. And then if a student forgets, there's no way to find their, unless the student's there, it's just hard to find their files. Okay? All right. Well, folks, I know it's Wednesday and we all have got to get ready for school tomorrow. So thank you very much. And you all have a good evening.